This week on Talking Pictures with Neil Rosen, we'll look at the new Sopranos prequel, The Many Saints of Newark, the new drama Mass, which tackles the difficult aftermath of a school shooting, Jake Gyllenhaal's claustrophobic new thriller The Guilty, set at a 911 call center, plus the retro western Old Henry starring Tim Blake Nelson, and the streaming sensation Squid Game. We've got all that and many more movie picks coming up. I'm Neil Rosen. Welcome to Talking Pictures. It's our monthly Critic Roundtable show where we debate what's worth watching and what's not when it comes to new releases, hidden gems, and Hollywood classics. So along with my panel, who are all still streaming from home, we have plenty of movies and TV series for you to watch either at home or in movie theaters. Joining me are Perry Nemiroff from Collider. Hey there, Perry.
It's paranormal activity during spooky season. Happy Halloween, everyone.
Happy Halloween to you. Bill McCuddy's here from Gold Derby.
You're wrong, Neil. Sorry, just practicing. You're wrong, Neil.
That is your catchphrase. And returning to the show, my friend Mike Sargent from WBAI.
Hey, Neil, Perry, Bill.
There you go. Let's start out with a look at several new films that are available either in theaters, on demand, or on streaming services, beginning with the new Sopranos prequel, The Many Saints of Newark. Let's take a look at a clip.
I wonder if I can talk to you alone for a moment, Mrs. Soprano. On the basis of the Sanford Binet, he's high IQ.
You can't prove it by me. He's got a D+ average.
Well, he doesn't apply himself, but he is smart. The results tell us. He's a leader.
Bill, tell us about The Many Saints of Newark.
Well, I have good news, but not great news. The news is that David Chase has proven that he's a made man when it comes to long format television. But when it comes to telling a story in just over 2 hours, forget about it. This chronicles the beginning of Tony Soprano and the Bada Bing Boys during the Newark race riots of the late 1960s. This can't fail to be the most anticipated movie of the year. So, of course, it's going to come under a microscope. We've got, especially front and center, Michael Gandolfini, who is James Gandolfini's actual son. That seems like stunt casting until we get into this thing, and he looks pretty good and sounds obviously like his dad. Leslie Odom Jr. is a drug dealer, proving he should really have his own movie. In fact, maybe we need another prequel after this one to sort of get us up to when Tony Soprano actually becomes the Tony Soprano we know from the series. Until then, we've got Kerry Stoll as Uncle Junior, and we get a twofer on Ray Liotta. We don't quite understand why he's playing two brothers. Doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but he's there for exposition in a role I'm pretty sure was shot after they did the rest of the movie. I'm not a huge fan, but it's not as bad as you've heard. The Many Saints of Newark has problems, but it's definitely worth a look.
Perry.
I think I dug it for the most part. It's definitely a little bit messy. And I grew up watching The Sopranos. I've seen the entire show, but I have a couple people in my life who are such big fans and were telling me that they were disappointed that this didn't fully feel like the show that they knew and loved, and that there wasn't enough of Tony's origin story here, which, it's a complaint that I kind of get. But personally, I appreciated the fact that The Many Saints of Newark felt a little different, but like it was kind of part of the same world, and it focused on other characters who maybe weren't Tony Soprano, but were still instrumental to building the foundation of the world that we come to know and love in the show. I think my biggest complaint is that this movie should have been a whole nother series. There was just way more to explore that it doesn't tap into nearly enough.
The studio is publicizing this as like the young Tony Soprano and how he came to power. But that's not what this movie is at all. This is really the Dickie Moltisanti story, who is, if you're familiar with the series, is the Christopher character's father. And it's really all about him, played by, nicely actually, by Alessandro Nivola. I like the cameos. I like Corey Stoll's Uncle Junior, and there's a young Paulie. And, I think actually Vera Farmiga was miscast as Livia, as Tony's mom. But there's just too much. I agree with you, Bill. There's just too much crammed into this. In The Sopranos, David Chase had a lot of time. There were some clinker episodes of The Sopranos, some mediocre ones, and some great episodes. And there's just too much going on here that's crammed into 2 hours. I think this would be better as a series. I think as a Sopranos fan, it's still a must-see. But if you've never seen The Sopranos, which is why I want to speak to Mike about this, who is not a Sopranos person at all, I want to know how this movie holds up on its own. If you're not familiar with The Sopranos, which is your case, Mike.
Okay. Well, I've never seen the original series. I've never even seen one episode, but everybody I know has seen The Sopranos. I'm the only person I know who hasn't seen The Sopranos. So going into this, I knew I didn't have that, as Perry said, there's a world we all know and love. I didn't love these characters. I didn't know them. I did not fall in love with them during this movie. There was a lot. There was a lot to digest. We're going through a lot of time. I agree with all of you. This should have been a series. And I think David Chase probably is better at long form storytelling than he is at this truncated epic, because it felt like it was meant to be epic. It's incorporating real events and all these characters. But at the end of the day, I'm watching a bunch of sociopaths who would kill each other, and I don't really care as much as I want to.
Moving on, Perry, tell us about a serious drama called Mass.
I think Mass is an incredible and very, very ambitious feature directorial debut for Frank Kranz. It stars Martha Plimpton, Jason Isaacs, Ann Dowd, and Reed Birney. They play two sets of parents. One, the parents of a victim of a school shooter, and the other, the parents of the school shooter. And I think this is one of the very best movies of 2021. And this cast is stacked with people who deserve award season recognition for their performances. And I also think Kranz deserves a whole lot of love for his courage in telling this story this way. Just because you're stuck in one room for the entirety of a film that's very dialogue driven doesn't mean it's not dynamic. And his choice to stay in that room and put the focus on his actors' performances, it makes this examination of this really challenging situation feel so full and human and honest and truthful.
Bill?
Well, I agree that there are some amazing performances here, but let's agree on a couple of things. First of all, this is not the kind of movie that's going to get people back into theaters. It's basically a stage play. The first 20 minutes is ridiculously surrounding the washing of dishes and the moving of tables and chairs. And then because these people are grieving, it takes a long time for them to open up. Yes, it's an acting tour de force, but could it have benefited from some outside scenes of maybe that day at the school or anything else that gets us out of that room and helps us understand the grief they're going through a little better than just close-ups? In my opinion, yes. This isn't what I would call mass appeal.
Mike?
Well, I think what's interesting about the time we live in now is a lot of films have been made that are trying to be self-contained. We're going to talk about another film that's pretty much takes place in one location. So I see this as a challenge, but like you said, it does feel like a play. You would like it in some ways to open up, but in many ways that restrained space sort of echoes what's going on with the characters. They're trapped in a space and they will not open up. It does ask a lot, in my opinion, of the audience. But the performances, as Perry said, it was like a joy to watch masters at work. So yes, it is not a great film, but great performances, absolutely Oscar worthy, in my opinion.
Well, there's no question about it that the acting is just incredible across the boards here. And I'm really glad to see Jason Isaacs, who is usually cast in action movies and other kind of stuff. I've seen him in some indies, that he's finally allowed to show some of his acting chops, because he's really great. And so is Ann Dowd, the whole cast actually. But I couldn't agree with you more, Mike and Bill. This is more of a stage play than a movie. It is a lot to ask for an audience to watch poor people sitting in a room for close to 2 hours. Yes, it's powerful subject matter, and it's harrowing and difficult to watch from an emotional standpoint, but I think it needed to be opened up more as well. Show me some flashback scenes, show me something. I mean, it is very demanding emotionally and content-wise on an audience. And speaking about movies that are set in one room, Mike, let's talk about a very different kind of movie, The Guilty.
The Guilty is a new film directed by Antoine Fuqua, and it stars Jake Gyllenhaal, and he plays basically a cop who has sort of doing time answering 911 calls because he's got a trial coming up. I don't want to give away what the trial is about because it's something that takes a while to get revealed, but the whole action and the whole drama takes place in the 911 office or section of the police station, and he is someone who's on the edge. He's kind of losing it because of something that's happened, but we don't know what has happened. And as he takes these calls and as he's trying to actually stop a crime from being committed, he actually ends up perhaps not doing what he hoped he would do. This is a great performance from Jake Gyllenhaal, but at a certain point, it starts to strain just credibility. You don't stay with this character as much as you want, because he starts making so many decisions that you're going like, you're an idiot. I like the film. I like what they tried to do. It's a remake of a Danish film that just came out 3-4 years ago that got a lot of acclaim. I'd recommend it if you're in the mood for this type of drama.
Bill.
Well, we get a bunch of what you didn't mention is a bunch of people calling in are some very famous cameos. But I got to agree with everybody about, or I think everyone's going to agree that this is a long Gyllenhaal. And, I know it was shot in 11 days and it's to be admired that it was made during COVID and everything. But again, it's very stifling. It opens up a little more than our earlier film, but I can't recommend this because I just didn't like the Gyllenhaal character.
I don't agree, but I'll chime in a minute. I'd like to hear Perry's opinion.
I thought Jake Gyllenhaal's performance was great, but I think I'm with you on that, Bill. I got very, very frustrated with the idea that everything was about Joe. And I kind of understand why it would feel that way, given some of the other, story threads that I don't want to bring up in a non-spoiler review. But when you're playing a 911 operator and all of your actions feel self-serving rather than trying to help the people that are actually calling in, that I found kind of problematic.
No, I don't agree. I mean, I think that this is a showcase for Jake Gyllenhaal. And unlike Mass, which we just talked about, which I thought needed to be opened up more, I like the claustrophobic setting in this. In a 911 caller, if you watch the 911 show or 911 Lone Star on Fox, they are basically in that room and they have to deal with situations. And I think that Gyllenhaal elevates the level of the material and it's very suspenseful. And I was kind of like really, edge of my seat throughout the whole thing. What's going on here? Old Henry is the name of a new Western starring Tim Blake Nelson. Let's take a look at a clip.
I'm Sheriff Sam Ketchum. We've been scouting for a man on the run. He's dangerous.
They ain't lawmen. They bank robbers.
Your last name McCarty?
That's right.
First name?
Henry.
Why they didn't shoot you dead, I don't know.
I got this crazy idea. There might be more to old Henry than meets the eye.
Some shaky old farmer?
He didn't hold that pistol like any farmer I've ever seen.
Bill, tell us about Old Henry.
Well, just when you thought everything had been done before in the Western genre, here comes Tim Blake Nelson. Normally, somebody called him the Coen brothers' go-to hayseed. He's normally the supporting guy. He steps up to the lead. And as he told me, wouldn't it be just the case that it has old in the title? He's a widowed farmer who's raising his son. And all of a sudden, they stumble across a wounded stranger with a satchel of cash. You know trouble's going to start then. Stephen Dorff is the lawman who comes looking for the missing man. But the great thing about this, from my point of view, is that it has an incredible twist at the end. I call it kind of Sixth Sense with a six-shooter. I enjoyed this movie a lot more than I should have as a stock Western because Tim Blake Nelson really elevates the material.
Mike.
What I like about this is a typical Western tale. Who is this guy? He's got a past. He's not quite who you think he is. And what I really enjoyed, to Bill's point, is character actors, who these are all solid character actors we've seen in a lot of films. And it's really good to see them fully embrace doing these characters, these Western characters, and making this movie. It was much more enjoyable than I had hoped it would be, and a great ending.
Harry.
So this actually isn't my type of movie, but that made it a really good reminder of one of the many reasons why I love doing this show, is because I make the assumption that certain movies aren't for me. And then you guys put them on my radar and I loved this. I'm very well aware of the fact that I always feel like we need more Tim Blake Nelson on screen in general, but I didn't realize how much I needed a Western like this in my life. And it's totally swept up in the atmosphere, the suspense, the performances across the board. I can't believe it, but I'm saying do not miss this one.
It's a good old-fashioned Western with a really terrific performance by Tim Blake Nelson. He's usually cast in supporting roles. I'm glad he has a lead role here as a man who's not initially what we think he is. I like the slow pace that unfolds for most of the movie. I think that works well. And then it switches to something else for the last act, and I think that works well too. If you like Westerns, like Perry said, she's not even a Western fan. I do recommend this on a lot of levels. Very, very good movie. Well, here's a series that's, as they say, sweeping the nation. Squid Game. Perry, I know you were going to make this your critics pick. I said, no, let's make this a regular part of the show and not the critics pick at the end. Tell us about it.
I hope everyone out there is ready for a new obsession. So, Squid Game is about a group of people who agree to put their lives on the line to play deadly versions of children's games in order to win a significant amount of money. And I feel like I don't need to tell any of you this, but this was so my thing. It's got Hunger Games and Battle Royale vibes, but it's also got its own creative twist and a shockingly powerful dramatic core to it. It just like it sucks you in and it doesn't let you go. So I would recommend being prepared to press next every time you finish an episode. And while I don't want to spoil anything, it feels very necessary to at least say that the Marble episode is my favorite episode of the show. And it also might be one of the best episodes of television I've seen all year, period.
Can't believe you mentioned the marble episode. I was going to say the standout episode is the when they play the marble game. I was sweating bullets throughout that episode. That was incredible. But all the episodes are good. And I have some more to say, but Bill, go ahead, take it away.
Oh, good. No, let's not stop you with more to say, Neil. Go ahead. Listen, everybody calm down because the world is filled now with Squidiots. And what I mean by that is this thing is really, really good, but to have 14 billion hashtags about it on the internet, come on. I mean, they're starting to dissect this thing and finding crazy things that aren't really true about it. Will you get sucked up into it? Yes. Is the Marble episode arguably one of the best? Perhaps. But if you haven't seen it yet, don't go in thinking it's the absolute best thing you've ever seen.
Look, it's really addictive to watch, okay? And it does try to make some statements about rich versus poor, but even that aside, it's just really entertaining as hell. It's violent, but if you can get past that, it's entertaining and fun. Mike, why do you think this thing is so successful?
Well, I think it's so successful for a few things. I think one, it's different. It's different than what American TV and what we've been digesting for the last all our lives, and especially through the pandemic. I think two, it's also believable. People will do anything for money, and the world is destroying itself. We're just watching it on Twitter. So I think that part of it is great. I think the idea that you could play children's games to their death, who's not in love with that idea? It's just a great idea, and it does everything a good science fiction should do. It is social commentary.
One note, when I started watching it, Netflix defaulted and gave me a dubbed version. Do not watch it dubbed. Watch it subtitled. It makes the world of difference. Different type of movie altogether that we're going to do next. Mike, tell us about What Breaks the Ice.
What Breaks the Ice is the feature film debut of Rebecca S. Crease. I think I'm pronouncing her name. And it's about two girls. One is a rich girl and one is a poor girl. The leads, Madeline Klein and Sophia Hublitz, play these characters quite well. They're very believable. One is 15, one is 17, one is what they call a townie in a small town. And the rich girl has come to visit this town. She's summering in this town. It's 1998. Monica Lewinsky is on the news. It's the backdrop to everything. And I'm not completely sure why, except that it is an examination in many ways of things that you just wouldn't pay attention to. For the first 2/3 of the film, you're watching this friendship between these two girls from different worlds, and you're wondering, why am I watching this? But almost like a horror film, the fact that nothing's happening is because something is going to happen. And when it does, it really kind of kicks the film into another gear. I do not think that it completely works, but when it does work, I think it works largely because of the performances and the writer-director's attention to detail.
Perry?
I don't think it works at all. Actually, I should walk that back. Not at all, because I do think the performances are the highlights of this movie. But I had a really hard time with the first act. It was almost like it felt incomplete to me.
Bill?
Yeah, I have to say this is extremely thin ice. Listen to Mike's description in the first place. He goes, for the first 2/3, it doesn't work. And then it kicks in. And then I didn't quite like that either. That's a pretty good explanation for trying to enjoy something that looks like it speaks to what's going on in the brains of our young kids. I don't understand why it takes place in the 90s either, but none of that matters because it doesn't need to take place ever.
I don't agree with any of this, okay? I think that the two main characters in this, I think the dialogue was realistic. And I think that the characters, I believe that these particular characters, it marks the feature film debut, as Mike said, of this new writer-director. And I think she shows a lot of promise. And I think what we have here is, even though it turns into some kind of thriller 2/3 of the way through, That's not really what this movie is about. This is really a look at class study between the rich and the poor. The rich come up to this summer town and, you know, they kind of hang out with the townies there. And you think it's a level playing field with these teenagers with sex, drugs, and alcohol, but it really isn't. I think that it's not a perfect film, but I think the acting is terrific. And I think that the story is good, and I think it's worth a look.
I hate you, Joe Colley. I have hated you for years, and the things I've imagined doing to you, I want you to hurt. I want you to suffer. I want you to make those noises my dad made when he put his hand over the bullet hole in my spine. I want you to beg for my forgiveness so that I can tell you no.
That was a clip from the TV series Midnight Mass. It's Perry Nemiroff's personal choice as we go around the panel with our critics' picks of the month. Perry, what is this?
Yet another big winner from Mike Flanagan for Netflix. So this is a series that focuses on the isolated island community on Crockett Island. One day, a new priest arrives, and soon after his arrival, these miraculous things start happening, and it leaves the residents to wonder, are they true miracles that really do justify the renewed religious fervor happening there, or should they be concerned that these miracles are gonna come at a cost? And clearly, I'm a big Mike Flanagan fan. He's just a pro at building exceptional ensembles and crafting these horrific scenarios with such thematic heft to them. And I'll warn you, Midnight Mass is on the slower side and it's very monologue heavy, but I think something like that works when you have such incredibly talented actors delivering those monologues, and they all have weight to them. Every single person in this cast is excellent, but I have my fingers crossed for future Emmy love for Hamish Linklater and Samantha Sloyan in particular. Those are knockout performances.
Leave it to Perry to find the finest in horror to sample. If you like horror stuff, this is her specialty. Listen to her. Bill, what is your pick?
Well, while the world is going to the latest James Bond film and raving about the fact that it has strong female characters, I'm going to go back to 1969 for the one and done James Bond, George Lazenby, on Her Majesty's Secret Service. It features a very smart Diana Rigg, who, if you didn't know this, actually marries James Bond. What? That happened? Yes. We get Telly Savalas as Blofeld, who needs earlobes for some reason. And it's all set in a mountaintop chalet. There are great ski sequences. And this many years later, even though Lazenby was dissed when it first came out, many critics, including me, put this at the top of all the Bond films. So by all means, rent On Her Majesty's Secret Service.
Mike, I know you're a fan of this film.
First of all, this is Bill. This is why I love you. Just so you know, the fact that you would pull this out. And let me add one more thing. And I love all the Sean Connerys and I love John Barry scores, but this is the best John Barry Bond score there is. That's why they
as a Louis Armstrong movie. We have all the time in the world.
Not only that, it has a great Christmas song in it too.
Listen, it's overlooked because it's the one and done Bond of the guy that replaced Sean Connery, but it's a terrific film. But I want to make a recommendation. If you like this film, there was a phenomenal documentary that came out a couple of years ago called Becoming Bond, which tells you how George Lazenby was picked for this. And there's some unbelievable revelations in this movie, like the fact that he worked without a contract. They wanted to sign him to do an additional 4 Bond films, and he turned it down, which he says is the stupidest mistake he ever did in his life. And the documentary is just filled with nuggets like this, and it's all, you know, Lazenby is telling you how this whole thing happened. It's great. The movie on Her Majesty's Secret Service is a terrific pick, and follow it up with Becoming Bond, the documentary.
My name's Bond, James Bond.
Mike, what is your pick?
So my pick is a movie called Summertime, which you may have missed this summer. It's directed by Carlos Lopez Estrada, who also made Raya, the animated film recently. And if you look at the film, it's got 30 writer credits. It takes place in one day in Los Angeles, and it features over 24 characters, Angelinos, if you will, who all in some way interact or interconnect. What's great about it, it's a spoken word movie. And what I enjoyed is, in terms of storytelling, we see so many standard 3-act, this is a movie, this is how it is, you know, what's the inciting incident. We see so many traditional kinds of films, you forget that film and this medium can tell other kinds of stories. And I highly recommend it. It's literally like cleansing your palate just to see something fresh and new. Not every single poem works and every single performance works, but enough of them. Overall, it's a love letter to LA, but it's also a great acknowledgement of the power of words.
Well, my pick this month is the 10-part series Impeachment: An American Crime Story. This is basically the Monica Lewinsky, Bill Clinton, Linda Tripp story, as told to an extent through Lewinsky's eyes, as she also serves as one of the series producers. Now, if you think you know all there is to know about this sordid chapter of history and don't want to watch this because of that, well, think again, because this is an absorbing look into the lives of everyone involved. Not only do we see Monica Lewinsky in a new light, Sarah Paulson is incredible as Linda Tripp, showing us Tripp's true motivations. Clive Owen is phenomenal as Bill Clinton, and Beanie Feldstein is also quite good as Lewinsky. But everyone in the supporting cast is also spot on. This is the third installment in the American Crime Story series, the first two being The People vs. O.J. Simpson and the assassination of Gianni Versace, and Ryan Murphy, who's at the helm of all three, hits it out of the park here again. It's an eye-opening, at times sympathetic, at times harrowing series, and there's even some dark humor here too. I was transfixed watching this, and I think you will be too.
Neil, Beanie Feldstein is miscast here. When is she going to do something as good as Booksmart? Monica Lewinsky actually picked her to be in this, which is mystifying to me.
I concur.
Well, get past that and watch the series. It's quite good.
I did not have sexual relations with that woman.
Well, that's all the time we have. With any luck, we've given you some movies and TV shows to watch. I want to thank Perry Nemiroff, Bill McCuddy, and Mike Sargent. I'm Neil Rosen. Join us next time on Talking Pictures.